Happy New Year's Eve, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Impolite Truths. We are pre-recording this episode because it is the holiday, but we are covering a bunch of topics here on the show. I am the outlaw, John Rocha. It is the final day of 2020, and I'm doing the show with my co-host here, the evil one, the bad bruja herself, Dorina Arellano. How are you, Dorina?
Hola, mijo, ¿cómo están? How's everybody out there in this crazy twilight zone of a year that we've had? Thank you for joining us on our basically very relatively new show where we talk about everything that's going on in the political world from a humanist point of view. We are not MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, thankfully for you. We will not be spreading propaganda. We will be honest with you and give you what we actually think that's going on, our honest opinions. We are concerned citizens, so we appreciate your likes, subscribes, etc. Also, because horrible person Mitch McConnell up in the Senate is holding up your payments. We understand if you can't support us monetarily, so you can like and tell your friends and family about us. But if you can't support us, you can Streamlabs us, streamlabs.com/impolite truths. You can super chat us. We will be on the live chat, probably talking crap about ourselves during this premiere. So we thank you for your comments, Streamlabs, etc. And yeah, John, our last episode of the year, technically. We will be back the first Thursday of January. We're going to try to do this show every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific. So hopefully you will join us for that. And lots of stuff going on as always, John. We talked a little bit, if you caught our last episode last week, we talked about our, biggest, lowest, nicer news items of the year. We did a little recap of the year, but some of those issues are still happening. We're going to get into today lots of topics that are important to you. Of course, the stimulus package situation, that it's crazy how much Americans have not had help from the government, where we're constantly actually paying our taxes, etc. So it's been a very frustrating thing that we need to make sure we keep informing you guys, and we need to make sure we keep our government officials accountable. So we will talk about that and a lot of other topics. John, what's on your radar?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's start off here. The madness of election fraud and the accusations and the conspiracy theories that have been coming from the people who are slavish to voters to former president, or soon to be former president, Donald Trump. This thing just keeps escalating and escalating. During it doesn't go away. I'm sure some of our more learned, more aware viewers are aware of this. And for those of you who aren't, we went into a whole new layer or level of the Twilight Zone with the most recent accusations being lobbed by the soon-to-be former president Donald Trump, accusing Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's brother of being an operative working for China to try to undermine Donald Trump, and was connected to voting machines that he accuses Raffensperger of looking the other way on, that voted in large numbers for Joe Biden, President-elect Joe Biden, over Donald Trump. Now, the twist of all of this is, and this is what Trump's tweet is, he says, "I love the great state of Georgia," of course, always playing to the crowd. "But the people who run it, from Governor Brian Kemp to the Secretary of State, are a complete disaster and don't have a clue, or worse, nobody can be this stupid." The irony of him saying nobody can be this stupid is incredible. He said, "Just allow us to find the crime and turn the state Republican." It turns out that Brad R.'s brother works for China, and they definitely don't want Trump. So disgusting. The problem is that the person he is accusing of working for China is a gentleman named Ron Raffensperger, same name as Brad Raffensperger, but has absolutely no familiar relationship to Brad Raffensperger at all. This Ron Raffensperger is the CTO of a Chinese technology firm in Hawaii. The two men are not related, so he's trying to connect this conspiracy theory. Stephen Fowler, who's a political reporter for a GPB News, tweeted out, "Georgia Secretary of State does have a brother who is a private citizen and not discussed much. He's also got sisters. None of them are named Ron, work for China, or have to do with voting machine vendors." So just more of the misinformation, more of the lies, being pushed here by the Trump administration and his slowly diminishing circle of sycophants who believe and support this madness of that there was some kind of widespread election fraud and conspiracy. This isn't going away. It keeps getting crazier and crazier, Dorina. And now, relying on the fact that people are not going to investigate this piece of information further, they're just flat out, blatantly putting out lies that can be easily disproved, but relying on the fact that millions and millions of people won't explore it or don't care and just want Trump to be president, so they don't care what they have to do to lie, steal, and cheat to put this man back in power on January 20th. It's insane.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we talked about it a little bit on our last week's episode, because one of the points that I think is important to reiterate is that the power of big tech, right? It's not just big tech, right? Like these people. And it's not just Trump and his administration. Unfortunately, they're just the worst at it. Yeah. They have been lying to the American public for a long time. And yes, I know that if you're watching us right now, you think, oh, politicians lie all the time. Not to this degree, right? Like there is definitely the fact that a president of our country has been constantly tweeting out for years, not just this year during the pandemic, but for 4 years before he was president, constantly lying about everything and spreading propaganda is already a dangerous thing. But unfortunately, this propaganda and lies get distributed much easier because of the interests and the unfortunately the if you didn't have money in politics, this would be happening, is what I'm saying. If you have political interests from Washington that are, if Trump is meeting with Zuckerberg, if other politicians, whether they're Republican or Democratic, they're meeting with Jack Dorsey, if they're meeting with these, CEOs of Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, etc., like there's an unfortunate political interest there where these big tech companies are profiting from this propaganda, right? And so that's a huge and separate issue that we have to deal with, and we have to make sure. And now you're seeing it, right? Like Facebook specifically is going through an antitrust situation right now. And I don't know if you guys saw, but I'm sure that some people that are aware of things like of companies like the Daily Wire, for example, they were just exposed, and Facebook specifically admitted that Ben Shapiro specifically is breaking the rules, right? Like, I guess they would systematically distributing content from the Daily Wire, which actually has Facebook group and pages that are all like racist and violent things, right? And that doesn't mean that specifically the people that work at the Daily Wire or Ben Shapiro himself or any of these political pundits are themselves racist or anything like that. But unfortunately, the way the algorithm works and all these websites, including when the president tweets, these things get propagated. Right. And that's a real danger. And then people, if you're in the typical average American user that is on Facebook or on social media, when you're just scrolling and you're looking at your friends' photos, right, you see that headline and then you think that's real. Right. You think that you don't fact check because these companies are barely fact checking themselves because unfortunately, the thing that propagates the easiest is fake news.
And that's why you have Facebook for all this. I mean, Twitter for all the stuff that's going on social media. Twitter puts those warnings, puts those labels on these tweets. But, Dorina, it just seems very clear. There are some people in this country and the millions, by the way, counting in the millions, who don't care if it's true or not. And this is the irony of it all, is that they're okay with their own guy stealing, cheating, lying, committing fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, to steal an election so that they can put their own guy back in. And they'll believe any kind of madness that the other side is doing it. So in their mind, they're like, well, the other side did it, so therefore it's okay if my guy does it. Or the other side did it, there's no way my guy is doing it. And we are having our we're having our rightful votes taken from us, or our voice not be heard. It's millions of Karens and Richards screaming to the heavens that they need to be validated for the fact that they lost an election, and they can't believe that they lost this election. And it's mind-blowing to me. They can't believe it when you see the incredible destruction the Trump administration has done to this economy over the last year, to workers, the unemployment situation, all of that because of their bumbling response to the COVID vaccine pandemic, to the COVID pandemic, and then now to the COVID vaccine rollout. They're bungling that as well, which we'll talk about a little later on in the show. But there's so many factors here that are involved that led this to happen and led him to take the loss. And I'm just so I've never seen this in decades of my life of living in this country and seeing so many elections come and go. I've never seen a populace respond in such a way, deluded into believing, or not even deluded, willfully pretending as if they actually believe that there was fraud or conspiracy by the Democrats. Because with one side of the mouth, they're saying how stupid the Democrats are, but then through the other side of the mouth, they're saying how incredibly smart they were to pull off this fraud conspiracy across multiple states. It's flat out ridiculous. One of
the fraud conspiracy that lost them more seats in the House and things like that.
Right. Yeah. They only care about the presidency and nothing else.
Right. By the way, you're breaking up, John. I think the Karen and Richard internets are raining down on you. But no, and look, to your point, it is crazy because like we have again the issue of modern technology and having to regulate that, right? Mm-hmm. But then it's weird that these people that are constantly crying, oh, censorship, right? Like if I can't spread these lies, you are censoring me, right? So like there is a huge difference between saying, hey, like there is freedom of speech and you are welcome to continue lying to anybody. There are people that have gotten rich from lying to people. Shout out to, Alex Jones and Candace Owens of the world. But at the end of the day, like if you are an official government employee, which Donald Trump is, and everybody that works for the Senate and the House, like anybody that's a congressperson, not only do you work for us, the people, but you have a responsibility to not spread lies, right? And so if you are using your official, social media profile to continue spreading propaganda as a government official, you should at least get fact checked. That doesn't mean that like when you see a little note under a tweet or I mean, Facebook keeps changing what they're doing. But when you see something like that, that's just saying fact check, this is actually incorrect information. That's not censorship. Right. Like that's actually just informing the public. This is actually a lie that a government official is telling you. I don't see a problem with that, especially when these companies are private. Right. These are private companies that have their own policies. And so I don't know. It's obviously there's a few different problems happening here. But at the end of the day, it's very unfortunate that these people in power continuously keep lying to the populace, and the populace keeps eating that.
Yep. And willfully eating it. That's the thing. And, to add to this, let's move on to the next section of this story. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, along with Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville, has, thrown their hats in the ring to challenge President-elect Joe Biden's victory in Pennsylvania on January 6th. There are a number of Republican representatives in the House who are going, including Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan. We know how Jim Jordan likes to, lie about things. We do
know how Matt Gaetz' hair keeps growing.
True, very true. But they're throwing their hats in the ring to debate and question the electors and the Electoral College and the vote. So now two sitting senators in the United States Senate, one coming in, one who's been there for a bit, are stepping forward and now are going to validate this challenge against the wishes of the Republican Senate Majority Leader at this point, depending on the Georgia situation, Mitch McConnell. So they are purposely flying in the face of Mitch McConnell, who recognized President-elect Joe Biden, said he didn't want to see any senators stepping forward to embrace these accusations of election fraud. So this is mind-numbing to me that this is actually going to happen now, January 6th. They're going to stage some kind of protest there in the Senate, try to force these states to have their willful elections overturned, the willful voices of the people overturned, because once again, they think there's a widespread conspiracy and election fraud, which is an absolute lie. And they're just trying to get their guy in power by any means possible. And it's unfortunate. to see this happen.
Well, especially because we just saw Josh Hawley literally work with Bernie or pretend, it's unfortunately everything that's going on with the stimulus bill, and we'll get into it after the story,
Yeah.
is it's a lot of political theater, right? And
Yes.
there's certain people that obviously we think have their heart in the right place, like the Bernie Sanders of the world. But Josh Hawley, we talked about it last week, that he was actually working with him in order to get more money in the stimulus package to the American people. But it's all political theater, because now we're seeing him, he's basically doing this because he's concerned that Trump and Republicans have lied constantly about election fraud, right?
Yeah.
So this is, as much as Josh Hawley is like, I pretend to care about you and I'm going to work with a Democrat progressive to get you money, I'm also going to play to the Trumpism, which is basically like this group of MAGA folk that has been unfortunately brainwashed and convinced to think that there was fraud in an election where there hasn't been any proof, and including to the point where companies like Dominion are suing, One American News Network and Newsmax and all of these propaganda machines that are out there that are actually backtracking, right, and saying, we actually didn't actually say this, right? So, but the fact that this person who is a senator is, and it's not the only person that's done this, because several people in the GOP Senate have been specifically supporting these straight up lies about election fraud. That is Trumpism still, and it's alive and well. And just because Trump has been voted out of office, it doesn't mean that these people aren't using Trumpism to continue manipulating their constituents to keep them in office, to stay in power.
Yeah, it's a very clear point, Dorina. What we're seeing is a bunch of senators, a bunch of Republican representatives, Republican senators and Republican representatives right now jockeying to be the point person for the Trump mob, for the people who support Trump, for the people who vote for Trump. They want to get the Trump people behind them, the Trump voters behind them. That's what they're essentially angling to do now, so they can build up their base of support to run for president and become president. I think there's no way on God's green earth that Trump is going to run in 2024. He will be a doddering old fool by then. So someone else is going to have to step in, and these are mostly young guys there who are doing young guys and girls, women. Sorry, Kristi Noem in South Dakota trying to do the same thing as well, jockeying to be the point person and acquire a majority of the Trump voters so that they can build their base up to make a run for the nomination in the Republican Party and become possibly the president of the United States themselves. So this is nothing but political thirst for power. And because 74 million people voted for Trump, or 70 million plus people voted for Trump, they feel emboldened to take these steps, emboldened to do these things, knowing they're not going to lose power or lose base or lose an election or anything like that, because they've got all these people coming aboard who are going to support them. So it's political theater, as you said, nothing less, nothing more. This is only going to delay the certification of Biden, and it's to placate these Trump supporters and make them feel like, yes, you're right. And this is the thing that I find fascinating about it, because if you look at it logically, Noah Hawley's comments are, millions of Americans think there was election voter fraud and conspiracy. I must represent them and make sure their voices are heard on January 6th and delay the certification of Joe Biden. But the truth is, the reason there's millions of people who think there was election fraud and conspiracy is because Josh Hawley and people like him have gone on right-leaning media TV shows or right-leaning media newspapers or podcasts or what have you to spout these election fraud conspiracy theories and create millions of people who think that there was election fraud and conspiracy going on here for the Democrats. So him to now use them as a shield, claiming he's fighting for them when he created, or he was complicit in creating this, is the height of unabashed hypocrisy. And it's just hard. It's just angry. It just makes you so angry to see that, because it's naked, just a naked desire for power and absolutely no care for this country at all. No care for bringing this country together. No care for actually healing the wounds that have been going on for the last 4 years that Trump has exposed, didn't necessarily create, but certainly exposed and maybe ripped open a little bit more with his rhetoric and his policies. And it's super frustrating to see this.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of political theater and hypocrisy, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with our non-ending stimulus package battle in Washington that we've seen this year, where the rest of us have been waiting on the government to help us throughout this pandemic, when numerous, now obviously other countries are worse, other countries are doing better, but we are definitely not doing well. Yeah. And so, and by well, I mean that if you look at the numbers, it's not just the fact that like 1 out of 6 Americans, are out of a job or are uninsured or underinsured. I believe the number is 90 million Americans right now that are underinsured or uninsured because if you're furloughed, or let go, unfortunately your healthcare is dependent on whether you have a job or not, which is what's wrong with this country, which is why we should not have privatized healthcare. So that's another issue compared to like not just the amount of people that have lost their loved ones, but that have lost their livelihoods, and all these small businesses that have not gotten help from the government, because all that money that we got in the first bill back in March went to corporations, right? Went to the larger corporations, not the mom and pop stores. And so since then, we all got, what was it, like the first payment of like $1,200, and that was it. We haven't gotten any help since, right? And now they're debating this, and unfortunately, like it comes as no surprise that this week specifically, the biggest villain of all is Mitch McConnell. Right? Because I talked about this with John a little bit in our pre-pro meeting. Is what's interesting is that it is political theater, because Bernie Sanders, as you guys know, I am a Bernie bro. I try not to idolize politicians, but I think he's one of the few people that actually cares. That if I was him, I would have quit already, because he's an amazing man that keeps fighting for us. So the fact that he's sitting on the Senate floor and he's talking about, we just passed the largest military budget in the history of our country. That is $740 billion more than, I don't know, like I think the number is that the next to 10 nations combined. But then meanwhile, over 500,000 Americans are homeless. Half of our working families are struggling to survive. And Mitch McConnell is blocking Americans from getting $2,000. Which the ridiculous amount that's going to our military, that is disgusting. It's immoral, especially when they're voting to continue our endless wars against most American wishes.
That's the thing. And also, and this is why politics are crazy. And when we cover it, Dorina, we're always amazed at the nuttiness of it all. I mean, now Trump came out over the weekend and didn't want to sign the bill that the Senate had negotiated. And by the way, the Republicans in the Senate felt that they had the president's approval to go forward with this deal for the stimulus to keep the government up and moving and have people get paid. And then at the last minute over the weekend, Trump says he's not going to sign this thing because he thinks Americans deserve more money than $600. Of course, trying to grandstand, knowing that he doesn't have the votes to override a veto, that he can get overridden by the veto, knowing that the Republicans were going to override his veto for the first time ever in 40 years, knowing all this. So it was just grandstanding to make him look like he's a man of the people. He could give two shits if you get $2,000, because he was quite fine with allowing Jared Kushner and other people connected to him and involved with him to recoup money from those PPP loans and make millions of dollars off those PPP loans. And certainly you see now he's pardoning everybody under the sun who has a connection to him for all these incredible cases of corruption and law breaking that were going on throughout his administration and other people's administrations as well. For example, Rand Paul's 2 people got pardoned as well, who essentially bought support by bribing a representative to go on Rand Paul's side. Just mind-blowing how much of this stuff was happening here. He's pardoning everybody, but all of a sudden he cares about $2,000. And then in the end, after allowing all those unemployment benefits for millions of Americans to expire because he didn't sign the bill, he ends up signing the bill on Monday. Well, that's too late for so many of those millions of Americans who now have to reapply in a system that is already overburdened. So in throwing his pouty tantrum that he threw over the weekend because he was mad that so many Republican senators are willing to recognize Joe Biden because he's obsessed with this election fraud thing that never happened, this was his way of throwing his political clout around and creating his own version of political theater. And in the end, who pays the price? Not rich Trump, not rich McConnell. It's regular, hardworking American citizens who can't make money now, or can't pay their bills, or can't pay the rent, or do whatever because they've been unemployed because Trump bungled the COVID response and the COVID vaccine rollout. So much of this stuff goes all the way back to him, and it's just incredible to see how callous they can be about regular Americans' lives and their livelihoods. I find it to be fascinating and sad. Really.
Yeah, especially because when we say the words political theater, I mean, someone like Mitch McConnell does not care about not just you, but he doesn't
Right.
even care about Trump, right? Like, it's not like these
Oh,
people
no.
that are in the Senate are like, oh yeah, we're huge Trump fans and we want him to stay president. Like,
Yeah.
everything they do is calculating into how they think they can brainwash their constituents to keep them in power. And so in this case, the fact that you have like McConnell knows where he's weak and where he might not stay in power is Georgia, right? And so now you have the Georgia what's it called? Senators like Kelly Loeffler and these also horrible people that sold stocks back in February. You can look that up. Purdue. Yes. Thank you. And that now people like them are coming out and saying, oh, yes, we do support Americans getting $2,000. That is just in order to get reelected. Right. Like that's what we mean by political theater. So it's the same with somebody like McConnell. He doesn't care that who's president as long as he's the Senate majority leader. Right. And so which is why, and I see a lot of people saying, well, why is Kentucky still voting for him? I'm like, well, it's not just the fact that there's voter suppression or gerrymandering or all these things. Right. But it's the same thing we talked about earlier. It's propaganda. It's brainwashing. There's so many of these issues. And that's why we do this show, so we can tell you about what's actually happening. But as much as you guys have heard me talk crap about Pelosi and several corporate Democrats that I have issues with, that I think need to not be in power anymore, Mitch McConnell is high up on the list of somebody that should not be in government. Like he is the opposite of a public servant, and it is disgusting that he has been giving so much money, not just to his corporate donors, but to the military and all of these things that are not necessary to survive in this country, where we're not giving anything to actual hardworking working class people in the United States, and the fact that we're not putting money into housing and healthcare and education just shows you where these people's priorities are. And of course, like the fact that it's like a horrifying reality show that we're watching with him and Trump. And they're all like, oh, well, if you're like, Trump is basically like, if you're not going to support me and tell people that I won, and if you're going to say that Joe Biden won, then I'm going to say that, yeah, like, I'm going to basically tell the American people, oh, well, it's McConnell that's stopping you. But they don't, but neither of them care about us. They're it's just bullshit, ego, greedy, like horrible people that are fighting with each other while a bunch of us are left out in the cold.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And that's what you're seeing. And that's what's so frustrating, because now you see with the stimulus plan, he shut down the $2,000 checks for people, said we can revisit it at a later time. So this Democratic senators countered and said, well, let's make it a separate bill, just the $2,000, not attached with anything else. And McConnell already said there's no way that's going to pass. And also, when you talk about political theater, I want to make this very clear. The only reason Kelly Loeffler and Will Perdue, the Georgia senators, voted for this is because they knew it wasn't going to pass. So it makes it look like they actually care about hardworking Georgians, but they don't. It's an empty political stunt to make it seem as if they would have been on board for the $2,000 going to these people. But in fact, they knew that it wasn't going to pass. So the gesture is there to maybe encourage people to vote for them with this important elections coming. And by the way, already Georgia, this was reported yesterday, the numbers have already, it's the most people that have voted in an election in Georgia for senator in ever. It broke the record. The record was in 2008. It broke the record already. And that is pre-voting. There's the voting ahead of the actual date, which is on January 5th when the election actually happens. So many people are voting ahead of time. They've already broken the record. So this is going to be, once again, I have a feeling that the Georgia Senate elections are going to be a mirror image of what we saw in our election overall nationally, in that so many people are going to vote on both sides. And I think the Democratic side will get a little bit extra. And of course, that's why Trump and all them are jumping on Brian Kemp, jumping on Brad Raffensperger, because they immediately want to throw questions and make it and undercut the legitimacy of these two Democratic senators winning. Because if you want to undercut a Democratic president coming in as president-elect, and then undercut the two senators that allow this thing to be back in to allow the Senate to be Democratic control. These are the ways that they're corrupting people into believing that there are illegitimate senators, illegitimate Senate, and illegitimate presidency. And that is super dangerous for the safety of this country.
Yeah. And just before we move on to our last topic, just a reminder that all this money we're talking about, all this money that the House and the Senate and Congress and the president, they're all debating about, this is literally your money. Right. This is money that we pay every year, federal, state taxes, etc. And it's not just taxes. It's the fact that these people in power have been specifically helping the wealthy grow their wealth by giving them tax cuts, while they are going at great lengths to stop poor people from getting $2,000, a one-time payment of $2,000. This is while Canadians are getting $2,000 a month, or other countries are actually trying to pay their citizens' salaries for the year. A lot, not everybody, obviously. There's other countries that are doing worse, but the countries that are doing better are sitting there just waiting for a vaccine to get back to normal, while we are not going through that process, right? And so, speaking of the vaccine, John, this is our last topic of the evening. So let's get into the vaccine rollout. And I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but how chaotic it's been with the distribution from the Trump administration to the different states, et cetera. If we want to talk a little bit about that, John.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that's been frustrating. You've seen watching, and even the vaccine rollout now is not being handled in a way that's effective and positive for American citizens, people who want to go back to work, companies that need to have employees in there, people that need to feel safe in these offices, in these companies, in these businesses. Now, all of this stuff is the delay, even to the front line workers, the delay even to people who need to have this vaccine so they can keep keeping other people safe from COVID, or at least nurse them through having the COVID symptoms. Even this has come to be subject to money, Dorina. We've seen people offering, rich people offering a bunch of money to step in front, to get to the front of the line, to get vaccinated. Somebody in California, I think, was offering like $25,000 or $50,000 to move up. This lawyer, all this stuff is happening now. It's showing you what we see. Dorina, look, you're a big horror fan. You've seen a number of these movies where pandemics happen and you see the worser parts of human nature coming out, because the idea of survival, especially when you have money, it leads you to do some terrible things over other people who you see in your mind as less valuable because they haven't accomplished what you've accomplished. And we're seeing that now. And now doctors are they're describing it as, and this according to NPR, as a quote unquote free for all for who gets the vaccine, who doesn't. Moderna came out yesterday and tweeted out that board members would be getting the vaccine ahead of frontline workers. What the fuck did board members do to be getting the vaccine ahead of time? Oh, money. So it's, once again, even in something where we can be civil and we can be humanitarian in our rolling out a vaccine, even here, we're corrupted and we're behind right now. We're behind on the vaccine rollout. We're behind on who's getting vaccinated. At this point, Doreen and I were talking about this before we started. At the rate we're going now, the entire country won't be vaccinated for another 10 years. We're supposed to be vaccinating people at 3 million a week. At this point, we're barely hitting a million.
Yeah.
No, sorry, 3.5 million a week. Yeah. And at this point, we're barely hitting a million. And it's all, and of course, you have the military general coming out saying, it's my fault. It's my fault. That doesn't solve a goddamn thing. Fix it. Fix it. Enough is enough already.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we are, the numbers are, we are at 1 million vaccinations a week. To get to herd immunity by June 2021, we need to be at 3.5 million vaccinations a day. And so
a day,
yes. And so especially because since the vaccine started rolling out, significantly more people have been infected with COVID, right? We're at like 3 million. And then have been given the vaccine, which is like 2 million. So because the virus is moving faster than we are, unfortunately, we have this bureaucratic system that's slowing it down, right? And so that's it's not just dangerous, it's immoral, right? Especially when you have these excuse my English, but these motherfuckers politicians that have been spreading constant propaganda and politicizing masks, showing up to get the vaccine immediately, right? When an essential worker is not.
Yeah. And that's the thing we're seeing here, that certain people are getting it over certain others. And the estimates that you're seeing here are chilling. They're chilling. And then to top it all off, to make it even worse, Dorina, we're seeing these people having these super spreader events. We're seeing these people have rallies and have concerts. We see someone like Kirk Cameron doing his religious ridiculousness with people around him. God doesn't want you hanging out with people who aren't wearing masks. He gave you a life. You must hold that life precious. To risk that life to go into an area with people who aren't wearing masks and not practice social distancing, to get yourself infected, in essence, that's you insulting the life you were given by God. If we're going to argue it on religious grounds, right? Some of you are atheists, some of you are not. I'm saying on religious grounds. It's ridiculous that these religious people are gathering people into large large gatherings with no masks inside and outside. It's ridiculous.
Well, and it's, whatever God you believe in or not, or gods, or if you're spiritual or religious. I mean, at the end of the day, most religions are supposed to be about helping your neighbor. And that means that we have our own responsibility as individuals that live in communities to actually be kind to our neighbors and be responsible with our communities to not spread the disease, while also the government, and whether it's federal, local, state, etc., they also have the responsibility, because they work for us. So unfortunately, they have been propagating, they have been politicizing the pandemic the entire year, which maybe other countries have, but I haven't seen to the degree that the U.S. has, and it's very unfortunate. And it's part of this growing problem that we had for years now of the populace being brainwashed by politicians that they idolize, which is why it's dangerous to idolize these people. Because remember, these people, there are good people that are in government. There are people that are working there that care about us. But a lot of the names that you hear, the big names, right? Trump, McConnell, Pelosi, like all these people have been there for a long time. And they're beholden to their corporate interests. And so they are, as much as the GOP proclaims to be the party of Christianity, I haven't seen them being actual Christians and helping their neighbors.
And look at, coming back to this vaccine rollout, let's give you some stats here real quick. This get from the Intelligencer, which is of course connected to the New York Magazine. In September, President Trump promised 100 million vaccinations by the end of the year. As a country, we have only 40 million doses, and had aimed, according to Secretary of Health and Human Services Alex Azar, to vaccinate 20 million by year end. That's bad enough, but we've administered only 2 million of those, which is barely 10% of the goal. At this rate, achieving sufficient vaccination to reach herd immunity and bring the pandemic to a close in the U.S. will take around 7 years. In Israel, as contrast, in Israel, they are vaccinating about 1% of the population each day, meaning the full program of population-wide vaccination will be done by this March. So we are supposedly the most advanced country in the Western world. We are supposed to be leading the way about what people should be doing in the free world. And here we are bungling something even like this at this level. Don't give me this idea, oh, there's more people in the States than Israel. That's irrelevant. It's about whether you've got a streamlined process to make this happen. It's very clear that we didn't buy anywhere near the amount of vaccines that we should have bought, the doses that we should have bought, which to me is mind-blowing that we didn't think to buy more instead of less. And at that speed, the effects will show up sooner, is what they're saying here as well. And they're saying if you vaccinate, what they've discovered in the Israeli approach, vaccinating 0.5% of the people over 90 drops the total fatality risk by 19%. Vaccinating the 2.5% over 80 cuts it in half. Vaccinating the 7.5% over 70 drops it 3/4. And they are close to bulk vaccinating everyone over 60. So this is how Israel is handling it, but we are not handling it anywhere near as effectively as they are and efficiently as they are. And that's going to lead to more deaths. Dorina, that's going to lead to more people getting this. And now we have reports that what we saw in the UK, that new strain that we've been reading about and hearing about that shut down the country essentially again, or the continent, or sorry, the UK again, has popped up now in Colorado. And I read before we started the show, it has popped up in California now, this new dangerous strain of the coronavirus. And we don't know if this vaccine can handle that new strain. This is going to get worse. This is going to get worse, sadly.
We also don't want to, be the show where we only talk about negative stuff, but we're doing this because we want to inform you guys, because there's so much bullshit propaganda out there, and unfortunately, our mainstream media doesn't really talk about these things. Like they talk about bashing the other side, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like, of course, I cannot wait to get Trump out of office and actually, hopefully, have a president that listens to scientists. But at the same time, where have Biden and Kamala been in all of this? And the stimulus package talk. Right? Like why haven't we seen their outspoken support about this? Right? So it's just a matter of, look, the reality is, we've talked about this, is that unfortunately, when you are at a high position of power, I think that greed really messes up human beings' morality. So it is our job as citizens of our country, as citizens that we care about our communities, to hold these people in power accountable. There's the McConnells of the world that are actually evil and need to be voted out. But then there's other people in government that are coming in, that are working class, that know what it's like to live in your car, to be evicted, to live paycheck to paychecks. Those are the people that, when you are frustrated about what's happening, pay attention to those people and pay attention to what's going on locally, because that's these people that run for local office, for city council, for like, they end up becoming Congress people. Right. So it starts there. It's like, I know it's frustrating, and I know it's hard to believe in the system, but the system doesn't work without us. Right. We're the ones that have to make sure that it keeps working for us, not for these corporate beholden people.
And the way you do that is to reach out to your congressman, reach out to your senator, and make it very clear to them that they need to get on top of this stuff and make it happen in a more efficient, streamlined manner. Trump took credit for it. Then 2 days later, for the vaccination rollout, then 2 days later was saying the only reason there's issues is because of the states. It ain't me, it's the states. And there might be a little bit of truth to that, but also a president leads, doesn't blame. That's the difference. A president worth any salt leads and fixes problems, doesn't sit there blaming the whole world for the situations that are going on, because he's bunkered down, mad about Mar-a-Lago renovations that are happening instead of caring about the deaths of so many people because of his incompetence. I mean, he has blood all over his hands for the mistakes that he made of Americans towards American citizens. And it's just sad to see.
And all he does is text with other Republicans, tweets, and golfs. So I'm happy to see that mofo get away.
I hope so.
Yes. So John, I think we're going to get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
But we thank you again. We do have a few streamlines that came on from last week that I want to read really quick. So we have Daniel Castro, who says, "Hello, Dorina and John. I just want to wish you a happy new year. Take care of yourself, and hopefully 2021 is a better year. Stay healthy." Thank you, Daniel.
You too, Daniel.
Happy New Year to you as well. We also have Sean Barreto, producer extraordinaire. Thanks for having this show. Looking forward to more in 2021. And then Doug Developer, who says, me being a Buddhist, can you explain why the Christian right, like Mike Lindell and Kirk Cameron, are devoted to Trump? Makes no sense. Also, would the right take the virus seriously if this happened under a Democratic president?
Would the right take the virus seriously if this happened under a Democratic president? I don't know if they would take it seriously. I don't know what that means. I feel like everyone is taking it seriously to a degree, but I think they're playing to a certain crowd to make it seem as if they're not, because these are the same people who we saw, Dorina, run to the front of the line to get vaccinated, and now we're hearing reports that they're allowed to select 2 aides who will get vaccinated. Why is anybody involved in Congress getting vaccinated at all is mind blowing. Ahead of first responders, first care workers, it's mind blowing. That's once again this idea that because you've achieved senator or representative, you are somehow have more value than hardworking Americans. You work for us. We don't work for you. There's the difference here. And that's what's frustrating to see, the kind of arrogance and elitism, and that's why I applaud was it Iman who didn't I'm sorry, Ilhan Omar, who said, I'm not going to get the vaccine before a first responder. I refuse to do that. And she goes against the squad, against AOC, because AOC got vaccinated. But of course, she's doing it to show people that they should get vaccinated. But you see other people, like senators who were talking down about the virus, saying it was not real, or the first ones running over there to get vaccinated. It's like Rubio. It's disgusting to see that as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. And look, I'll personally leave you with this. And I've talked about this on the show before, that I really hope that all of this year has been very obviously difficult for most Americans, and people who are already struggling. It's even worse. And so I really hope that that because we're all in this together, right? We're all going through these struggles together, that it helps this country become more communal versus individualistic. Right.
Yeah.
Because we also have this weird idolization culture of celebrity, where we ended up with a reality TV star as president, where we are having these people in power that I think they think, oh, all these people voted for me, that means they like me, and I'm a mini celebrity, and I'm just have power, and I don't care to actually work for these people. Right. So I hope that this is a turning point in this country where people are waking up to these things, and because these issues have been going on forever, since before I moved here, since before John was born, probably. So
yes.
so I really hope that this is a turning point, and that something positive that can come out of this pandemic is to see the issues that this country needs to resolve.
Yep. And we need to get on top of, and you have to do it as much as we have to do it. It's all of us in tandem, bringing these people to heel, bringing these people to task. And of course, we vote them out or vote them in, depending on how they help us in what we've got going on in our world. And we need to care about our votes more. I hope this election showed everybody that your vote 1,000% matters, and we mobilize people more and more to vote and make it easier for people to vote, so that they can, so we can keep these senators and these representatives and this president and vice president, we can keep them on task and keep them working for us. That's what matters.
Exactly.
All right, that's it for this episode of Impolite Truths. Thank you so much for watching us or listening to us. You can always listen to us on the Outlaw Nation Podcast Network as well. And of course, we're probably in the chat. So thanks so much for bantering with us there in the chat as we watched ourselves talk about these very important issues. Dorina, where can people find you? And please, any final words as we walk into 2021 and say goodbye to 2020?
Yes, you can find me on my own channel, Bad Bruja, where I usually DJ. Sometimes I haven't done it this much these past months, but I will be doing it in the new year. I am also one of 3 World Girls with Roxy Star and Steph Sabra. We have our own YouTube channel called The World Girls, where we give things a whirl and we make fools of ourselves for your entertainment. So hopefully you'll join us for that every Wednesday and Sunday evening. And look, guys, John and I are not political pundits. We've said it before. We appreciate the time and energy you guys spend with us, because we know that politics can be a tricky subject, and it's exhausting to keep talking about this. And the media is so overwhelming in the bullshit that they spread. But just what I would advise is what I advise myself when I get frustrated, and take breaks from this, but try to stay informed, right? Like you can't make it your life because it's unhealthy unless you're an actual politician.
Right.
But the important thing is to stay informed and to make sure that you are taking care of yourself, to not let media biases and your own bubbles take over your personality, right? Like, don't put yourself in, like, I am aligning myself as a conservative or a liberal or a Republican or a Democrat or whatever. I think those labels are dangerous. I think that we're all human beings, we're all American citizens, and I think that the important thing is that I don't care what you look like or how much money you make. Unless you're a billionaire, you should probably make a little less and give us some, because there's people dying on the streets. But I think that we are all here in this crazy world and existence. And I'm going to get philosophical and spiritual here, but I don't know what else I'm supposed to do here other than help others. And so if there's people in power that are not about that are about enriching themselves, we just need to vote them out.
Yeah,
that's it. And the way you do that is by educating yourself and just get off Facebook, right? Like, don't join these groups that are specifically always talking about conservative and liberal tiers and all that. That's all bullshit, and it gets us nowhere. And you're helping these people in power manipulate you into thinking that the other side is the enemy, when the enemy is Mitch McConnell. It's the Mitch McConnells of the world. It's on both parties. It's the people that are there to enrich themselves and take our hardworking time and energy. So please stay informed and talk to people and treat your neighbor as somebody who is also struggling like you. That is not your enemy. Your enemy is the people in power that have been there for a long time, that are taking our hardworking taxpayer money that we pay them all the time. Those motherfuckers need to be voted out.
There you go. Absolutely well said, Dorina. That's a good sentiment to carry into 2021. Maybe we can change as a country to be more conscientious of all those things and do better with our responsibilities as American citizens to this country as well, by putting in people who actually care about furthering the country, furthering a majority of the populace, furthering us as a nation into representing something more positive and better. Be the bright light we used to be. We used to claim that we were. We used to crow that we were. Be the bright light for people here in the world and for other nations to follow. So we shall see. You can follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel down below. Leave a comment, leave a like. Those are all important. It helps elevate the visibility of the show. And tell other people about the show as well. Tell friends of yours who are into politics, who are kind of maybe getting into politics, to come over and sample our show. Take a chance on our show. They might enjoy the way we do things. As Dorina said, we're not paid pundits. We don't owe any loyalty or fealty to anybody. We speak our truths as we see it and try to present the facts for you to take a look at it, analyze, and see it through your own prism as well. And we're always open to people from different points of views, different walks of life, coming in here and having conversations with us when we're back to doing it live in 2021. But until then, take care of yourselves, wear that mask, practice social distancing. Don't let anyone pressure you to be in a situation where you can catch this COVID virus. You do not want to catch the thing. Trust us on that. So please take care of yourself and be well, and then come back and see us in 2021. We'll be waiting for you. And until then, we'll talk to you soon here on another brand new episode of Impolite Truths on the Outlaw Nation channel. Peace.